What if I told you that you could make calls to your REST API without writing, or at least writing a minimum amount of code? Let's go check out what that's all about. Now, typically at the beginning of my videos, I always show like the end result. So also in this case, although this doesn't really cover what we're about to see in this video, because this is just a collection view with objects, but these objects we're going to get by just declaring an interface and not writing any code to go out to our actually REST servers and actually deserialize the JSON, none of that stuff. And we're going to see how to do just that. But before we go anywhere, a quick shout out to my latest senior developer member of this channel, Srinath Nanduri. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for becoming a member of my channel. If you're considering supporting me with this channel and becoming a member as well, just click that little join button that's down there below this video or on my channel, and you can check out what it's all about, what the costs are, and how you can get started right away. Now, without further delay, let's go check out Refit. So here we are in Visual Studio 2019. On the left, you can see the XAML page that's actually on the right, and you will notice that this is not the file new Xamarin.Forms app. That's the way I'm supposed to say it. I already implemented a little bit of code. I will walk you through it, and because that is how I can show you what this Refit actually does. So I've implemented a collection view, which gets a list of to-do items, and to-do items are just very arbitrary, right? This is just a service on the internet that provides you with sample data. So this gives you a little bit of data to work with to try these things out, like these demos. The link is down in the video description if that's something that's helpful to you. But I've set up a item template, which is just a stack layout that shows two labels with the title of our to-do item and also if it's completed, yes or no, just so we have a little bit of a model, a C# model that we can work with. So you can see it here on the right running on the iOS simulator. You can see the title. You can also see my designer skills are not that great, but you can see that it has the title, it has completed, false, 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 true, and we have a whole bunch of them. I think this list gives you 200 items. There's one very important thing that I forgot, which is here, which is going to be the refit sample. There we go. So let's save that, and with hot reload, it automatically updates my running app on the iOS simulator, also works on physical devices, and of course Visual Studio for Windows. Now let's go to our main page, code behind, and here you can see that I've implemented already a little bit of code. So you can see I have this observable collection that is used as the collection store for my to-do items. So I'm adding the to-do items here, and those will be shown here with a little bit of data binding to collection view. If you need to know more about data binding, check out the playlist that's coming up on your screen right now or down in the video description where I linked it as well. I've explained a couple of MVVM things there. If there's more that you would like to know, scroll a little bit even more further down to the comments and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Then in the main page, I set the binding context to this, and in the on appearing, I set like, hey, are we initialized, yes or no? If not, then we're going to get those to do items, and then I set the initialize to true, so it doesn't trigger every time that I go and have this page appearing. And here we have the get to do item. So the reason I'm doing this is because this will let me do the async stuff and await stuff instead of in the constructor. So typically you would probably have a view model where you would do this, and then maybe your REST calls would happen in a different service class. So there's a lot of architectural wins that you could still do here. Just for clarity, I'm trying to keep my samples as simple as possible, but you'll have to fit this into your own solution. So I'm just doing this all in the code behind, which is not recommended if you want to write maintainable code, but this is the easiest way to not distract you with any of the other stuff. So here, private async task, get to do items. So here I'm getting the to do items, and this is code. If you're writing an app, this is code that you'll be seeing a lot, right? I think you also shouldn't be doing like the using HTTP client. So you want to just get one for your view model, or maybe the entire app session, and you just want to reuse that one. But for now, I did it like this. And here you can say new HTTP client, then you're going to get that string, right? And this is the endpoint, the test service that I mentioned. So it just has a couple of endpoint for to-dos, and I think also for users, and a couple of these other things that are typically used in applications. For this, it's to-do items. And then you're going to get that as a string, right? So this is all the JSON string that you're going to get back. Then the to-do items, I'm going to deserialize those because it's a collection of items. So I'm going to deserialize that into a to-do item array from the string that I just got, right? And then I'm going to loop through it and add those to the to-do items. Actually, I should add the to-do items not clear here so I don't get the items duplicate. But anyway, sample code. So this is the code that basically all your REST calls look like, right? And also for the post, you have to get the client, do the post, check if the response type is okay, etc., etc. So this is very tedious code to write, and actually you don't have to write it anymore with Refit. So quickly to wrap up this story, the to-do item is just a simple class that has the user ID, the title, and the completed. So this is basically your C# representation of the JSON stuff that's coming in from that to-do endpoint. Okay, now let's see how we can remove this code and make it much more easier and not do the whole deserialize dance each time. So for that, we can install Refit. So let's go over to my solution. I can actually go to my shared library and right click that and say manage NuGet packages, because this package does not need to be installed on all your platform items. This does not have any platform specific stuff. In fact, you can use this outside of Xamarin.Forms. You can use it in your ASP.NET project. You can use it in your WinForms project. Everything that's supported by this package, you can use it on, which is really great. So let's find Refit. It's part of well, the .NET Foundation, but also of the reactiveui, I think. So you will find this one. At the time of recording, the latest version is 6.038. So let's just add that. And this uses the System.Text.Json instead of NewtonSoft JSON. So I'm using still use NewtonSoft JSON here, but you could uninstall that if that's what you want, or if you have trouble with the new System.Text, because that is basically NewtonSoft JSON built into the .NET framework. If you have any issues with using that, you can still configure Refit to use NewtonSoft JSON. Go find the website for that. There is instructions on how to do that. So there's a lot of documentation actually on the website. I'll show you that in a little bit after for some more advanced stuff, to just give you a quick glance on that. So now that Refit is installed, what we can do is basically just write an interface, and that will be everything. It will generate the code for us from that. So let's go over to our solution, and I'm going to, in my shared code again, add a new new file. Let's do that, and then I can say empty interface, and here I can say to-do server. Again, the naming and that kind of stuff is up to you. Also, again, you probably want to use this in a service, which you typically use to communicate with a server or something like that. But I chose to do it this way. So public interface to-do server, which is really cool. And then you have these sets of attributes. So I can just say get, and I need to add the right using here at the top, using Refit. There we go. And then I can get this get attribute right here, which has one overload. So I can just do this, and it needs the path. So it needs to know where to get the actual data from. And there we go. This is it. Don't forget to add the slash here. You will get a runtime exception telling you that it needs to start with the slash, I think. Or maybe they changed that, but that was how it worked historically. So don't forget to do that. It needs to all start with a slash. And of course, you also only give like the relative portion of the URL, because we're going to specify the base URL a little bit later on. So now this is an attribute, so now we have to specify our method in C#, right? So now we can just say task, because it all has to be async so that the performance is in check. And I'm going to say here to-do item, because it's going to return that to-do item array as well. And I'm going to name this just get to-do items, right? Something like that. There we go. Need to import the usings here as well, using system threading tasks. There we go. And now we're ready. This is all the code basically that I need to write to get the items from the same server. So all the code that you just saw is now reduced to this. Isn't that amazing? Well, it's not entirely true. Of course, we need to set up a little bit of other stuff. So let's go back to our main page now. And here at the top, I'm also going to create our actual I2Do server. So it's an interface, so it also works pretty well with like dependency injection and that kind of stuff. So that's really great. And I can just say here private, and it can be a read only because I'm not going to change it, which is going to be my to-do. Oh, I actually need to specify the type. So the I2Do server, to-do server, let's make it something like that. Then I'm going to say is REST service, which is something that is inside of Refit. So again, let's add using Refit here at the top. And then it knows this REST service dot for, and this is going to generate the REST service for us, so the implementation, if you will, for the I2Do server. There we go. And we need to specify, so this gives you a lot of control actually, because in the for you have a couple of overloads. So let's see, we need to specify at least the HTTP client. So you can also, insert here an HTTP client with some special needs, maybe have some headers that you want to have on there, or do something else with your HTTP client. Maybe you have some very specific HTTP client implementation. You can just inject that here and it will use that for you. Or you can just say use the host URL. So you can just say this is my base address, and it will probably just use the default HTTP client. Or you can have a couple of refit settings here as well, the request builder, so you can even play with that. So this gives you a lot of flexibility on what is actually happening. So let's just stick with the base URL here, which is going to be this. So I'm going to copy this from here. And there's that. So you can see that this is only like the domain, right? Because the endpoints, we are specifying those on these methods here, these method declarations. So this is all ready to go. And now we can just say to-do server. So I can remove all of this code. Let's just keep it here for reference. But I can say, hey, to-do server dot get to-do, well, not get hash code, get to-do items. And this is going to get my to-do items now. That is so cool. So let's get these items here in my, my items, var items, await, get to-do items. And now I just need this for each. So let's just copy that because I'm a lazy developer. So this is probably more work than I actually typed it, but oh well. And I have to do this var item in items, and it's going to loop through and actually add them to my to-do items. So now all of this is basically needed to do all of this. So that's way easier, right? You have to know that if something fails here, it will throw now an API exception, I think it's called. So also for, I think for anything that is not an HTTP 200. So if you want to deal with that in any other way, then beware of that you need to try catch or do something else, maybe with the refit settings. But this is just a happy path to get you started. But definitely look into that. So now I installed a NuGet package, I changed code. So let's stop and restart this application, which is actually not going to be too exciting because we are still going to see these same items, but now they're coming through Refit and just by writing that interface, which is pretty cool. So the app has been rebuilt, it's coming back up, there we go. And we should see, I think it takes a little bit of time. I don't know why the items are maybe that big or the server is a little bit slow because it's a free service. And actually it says 404 not found. So that is interesting. So here you can see the Refit API exception. Well, this is exactly my point for like the exceptions that we need to handle. Okay, so let's try and see what is going on here. Let's stop this. I'm going to close this. And it should use these to-dos. Oh, I think I did something there. So to-dos, and I think here I specified it as to-do. See? So here we go, to-dos, and let's try that again. I promise you that was not intended, but it adds to my story of the exception, so this was a great coincidence. Now the app is coming back up with the to-dos, and now it should actually go out to the endpoint, get the to-do items, and list them for us in that collection view. So that is, yes, there we go. The same items now through Refit, and you can see that it actually works. I proved it now with the typo in the get endpoint. So that is really great, right? So you don't have to do the serialization, deserialization, all the things all the time. So that is really cool. Now, what you probably also want to do is maybe, add some stuff to your URL here. So maybe you just want to get that one to-do item, right? So let's just copy this one. And we're going to get just one. Here we go. and not make this. There we go. And then how are you going to specify like /1, right? Because that's the ID that you want to get. So how are you going to do that? That's kind of interesting. What you can do is specify parameters like this. So I can just say ID, and I can also say /whatever. And then I can add here in my method, I can say int ID. And this, as long as these names will be the same, ID and here, it will map that to the right thing in the URL. So if I create then here string whatever I assign here to this method is going to end up here in this URL. So that is how you can make kind of like dynamic calls without having to go through all kinds of hard stuff, right? So okay, whatever, I don't need to whatever actually, so let's just do that. But I need the ID, so let's just do that. And I'm gonna go to my main page here, and I'm not gonna do anything fancy with that. But let's just get var to do item. Let's just get the one, await, and that's now in my to do server. Get to do item, and I'm gonna say 1. There we go. That's all I need to do now to get this to do item. So let's set a little breakpoint here, stop and restart the app. And we should see a to do item coming in, just the one. And it has replaced that thing in the URL for me. It did all the things automatically. And all I needed to do was add a little method declaration in my interface. So here we are. The app is coming back up. It takes a little bit to get the actual item. There we go. So to do item, let's inspect what's in here, please. Please show me. Okay, it's not going to do it. So let's go to the immediate window, to do item. And here you can see that it's completed false. ID is 1, title is this, user ID is 1. And actually, if we run this, then we should probably see the same thing. This is the one right here, right, that we're actually getting now. So that is pretty impressive stuff. Now, another thing that's quite common is, of course, posting something. And as you might have already guessed, we also have the post, or we have the put, or we have the delete, which is all the HTTP verbs that it's going to use, and you just assign them by these attributes. So let's do a post. And then we're going to say task. And I know in this server, like, you know, also I used this sample server, just someone from the internet. So just so I can show you that on the server side, it doesn't require anything special. So you don't have to implement anything special to do this. It can be any REST service, but also it depends on how the REST service is implemented, right? How you're going to get this response. So some REST services won't give you any feedback, but this REST service I know is going to give us the to-do item whenever we post something. So I'm going to say save to do item, and now we want to have that to do item here, right? Item that we're going to save. The interesting thing though, so I need to specify the endpoint, which is also /to-dos. There we go. And the interesting thing is now that this usually goes in the body, right? So in the body of the request. So we can say that explicitly by adding an attribute here on the actual parameters too, with which we say we want you to put this item in the body of our request. So there's a lot of stuff here that you actually need to know to work with this, but this is pretty cool, pretty powerful. So again, let's go here, and now I'm going to say to do item. So let's make this saved to do item, and I'm going to say to do server. And I'm going to say save to do item. There we go. And of course, it then needs a new to do item. And I'm going to assign a couple of properties to this. Actually, the ID is going to be assigned automatically. So let's say completed is true. And we're going to give this a title. Like something random, like did you subscribe to my channel yet? Which is a good to do item. You can cross it off your list right now. Just click that subscribe button. And what do we have more? The user ID. So let's just make that 1. I don't know. So this server again is a free server. So it will just, let's put in a breakpoint here again. It will give you an HTTP 200 if everything is okay, but it won't actually save the item. That's the way it's set up for you, so you can actually test the response and everything is okay, but it doesn't actually save the item on the server, because else it would be a mess if everyone was using this. So it's going to get our items, it's going to get our one item, and then it's going to post our item that you can see now right here. And then we get the response. The ID is 201. I said earlier that this is giving us 200 items, so that checks out. The title, did you subscribe to my channel yet? Completed is true, because now you've subscribed. I know you did. User ID is 1, so this posted our little item as well. That is really cool, and that is how you can get started with Refit. I just wanted to really quickly show you the repo where this lives, reactiveui/Refit. It's quite active in development. There's lots of versions, a lot of contributors, which is really great. Of course, maybe support this library if there's any way that you can. Maybe do your own contributions. But what I quickly wanted to show you is scroll down here, because you can see here the scroll bar is very tiny, so there is a lot of stuff here. Because HTTP calls can become very complex, and there is examples for so much stuff here. So this is the very basic one that we basically just saw. This is again what we just saw basically. For .NET Core, you can really easily add Refit client like that, configure HTTP client, there we go. What works, API attributes, body content, you can do JSON, you can even do XML, you could do form posts, headers, you can add headers to your request by just adding another attribute as well. So if there's any stuff here that you cannot figure out, please let me know in the comments, and I will make maybe a follow-up video on that or answer you in the comments right there. But I just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of examples here that you can look at for whatever you want to do and whenever you need a little bit of help. Now that is pretty cool, right? You can just declare an interface, add a couple of attributes, and basically that's all the code that you need to write. The rest will be generated for you at compile time, I think. So you don't have to worry about, going out to your REST service, doing all the serialization, deserialization, all that code that's just distracting you from the important bits in your app, the business logic, and all the other fun stuff. I hope this was useful to you. If there is something unclear, please let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer you, or maybe make another video to clarify a little bit more. Thank you so much. If you've liked this video, please click the like button under this video. Click the subscribe button if you landed here and you realize that you're not subscribed yet to this channel. Then maybe you want to subscribe to. And for the rest, I'll be seeing you for my next video. Keep coding.